Hey, Len, how are you?
Good, hanging in there.
Nice, nice. I see. I know it's a virtual background, but it's
I
very
don't even know which background I selected. I don't know if I should select a different one.
well.
Change it up. I don't know. We're going with this one.
It kind of reminds me if
And it
you're
looks
on like
shadowy in this one, don't I?
a little shadowy. Yeah, it kind of reminds me
Yeah.
if you're in like Japan where they have the lobbies very up high. You have the nice greenery in the background, but then you have
Right.
the skyscraper behind you. So very cool.
Yeah.
Well, as always, thank you for making time. For those of you just watching this for the first time, this is probably our sixth, maybe fifth or sixth video in our Ask a Lawyer series. So Len is a real estate attorney, has been one for about 10 years or so. And every couple of weeks we get together, we talk about topics that are helpful for people buying homes, people selling homes, and everything in between. And today we have I think it's interesting, fun topic is ways to sell your home quickly. So I think
In this market, you just have to list it. It'll go pretty quickly.
right, and it will. But I mean, are there any like recommendations? And I have my own, but from like a legal perspective, what are
Yeah.
some things people can do even before they list it to make sure it goes quick?
I'm happy you asked this. So, the importance of an attorney in a real estate transaction is pretty profound. You're either purchasing, or I'm sorry, you're selling or purchasing one of your largest assets in your life. I have clients who approach me to review gym contracts, but for some reason, I don't review listing agreements or a contract until after it's already been executed and signed, which it's very different in real estate. But in order to get stuff properly set up, what you want to do is, even if you're considering listing your home, you may want to start with an attorney initially, just so they could start to clear title. Or even if after you get the listing agreement, immediately start looking for an attorney to start working on the items. So let's say, you started listing, and in that listing agreement, they're going to, prep it for sale and prep it for the MLS. So that's 2 weeks out, let's just say. Well, that gives the attorney sufficient time to pull title and to start examining the title to see if there's anything on there that may cause an issue. It also allows us to prepare all the documents necessary for closing. This is very critical, especially in a cash transaction, which I've seen closing dates be within 7 days. Obviously, attorneys recognize, and other attorneys recognize as well, that if I have a 7-day closing, it's not happening if I just got the contract and I haven't pulled title yet. It's very unlikely, just because you don't know what's on there. But in advance, I mean, I could make a 7-day closing. If I have everything in place, I can make a 3-day closing if I have everything in place realistically. Even with the HOA docs, being able to order those and get those on a rush, it gives you that time. So I would say almost start with the attorney even before you have a contract, you accept the contract, or even put it, start having showings.
Yep. Yeah, and I think to your point, and I know that's been even my experience way back when I was younger. You get a listing agreement, you're like, yeah, sounds great, signed it, right? And
Yeah,
it is sort of funny because even if you don't have a legal background, you always hear growing up, don't sign anything until you read it or until you have an attorney look
right.
it over. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I think,
And it never happens in the real estate world. I've shared with you in the past, like, people make me review some of the most mundane contracts, not even pertaining to real estate, almost insignificant. I made the joke of a gym contract because it was true, but then no one bothers with, the listing agreement, or the real estate contract they just signed.
some of those gym contracts. It's funny.
You're not negotiating them anyway.
Well, yeah, you're not negotiating, but we had a video, I don't know, it might have been a month ago, 2 months ago, and you said something similar, and it just so happened that I was switching gyms, and normally I don't read them. I'm just, I kind of scroll through, I'll see what the deals are and all that. And I read it.
Did you have to give up your kidney?
And no, thankfully I did not. But no, but I read it, and there was something in there where you have to give like written notice of cancellation, and it just was funny to me because
Aggravating.
I don't know if that I guess that's the rule, but it was just, I was laughing anyway. But I think so on the sell side, from my perspective, on the realtor side, I think one thing that I would always recommend is like normally people know 2, 3, 4 months, sometimes not always, but you usually have some lead time, right? What I would always suggest, and this is what I've done too, is put a list together of all the things that you've done over the years to improve the house. You want to highlight that in the listing because that does matter. I mean, if you put in high-end lighting from, Restoration Hardware or from a place in the mart, that's something to highlight. Likewise, there might be little things that you just want to touch up. I mean, you're not going to make every repair, but you might want to just take a walk through the house and say, hey, you know what? Yes, I know this probably needs some paint, but it's fine, right? It's a touch-up thing. So those are always the quick and easy things that you can do on the realtor side. And it sounds like on the attorney side, basically, as we've been talking about, get in touch with your attorney early and often.
Right. Just let us prep our things and we can get it done. I can't speak to the buyers as much because if you're in a cash transaction, you could close. But a lot of times, if there's a lender involved, and a lot of times they'll say, "Yeah, we could close this deal very quickly." Well, that's if there's the appraisal was waived and stuff like that, because there's still other steps buyers have to take too to get their loan approved. That pre-approval doesn't mean you're guaranteed your loan.
No, it doesn't. And personally, I've been through situations where you're pre-approved, and then they have to basically.
Here's 5 new things that pop up.
Yeah, they turn over. I remember one time it was like, hey, the late payment from 15 years ago for $80 or something like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I guess one question for you then. So are there any? The topic of this video is, hey, we want to sell your home. You want to make sure you're doing everything that you could control, right? And to do it quickly. Are there any maybe, watch outs, top 2 or 3 things that you'd recommend to folks outside of consulting an attorney before you sign a listing agreement, but anything that you've seen on the legal side that has like caused snags in closing or anything like that to highlight?
Yeah. First things first, and I've said this before, see if there is a local village inspection, because you do want to have that in place before you start moving forward, because that could be lengthy, and you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're delaying the close in order to gain compliance with the village inspection. Second thing, this is going to sound really stupid, make sure you own the house. Do a search of your deed just to make sure how it's vested, because a lot of times too, it might be a husband and wife on when they bought the house, and one of the spouses died, but then it turns out the vesting is improper. So let's say if it's just tenants in common, well, now what happens is that one of the spouses died, the living spouse owns 50% of the house, and then the remaining 50% goes to the estate of that surviving spouse. Now, in the estate of that surviving spouse, obviously there's many things that will dictate how that gets split up, but it could be, let's say he decided to leave all of his shares to, I don't know, a church or to a child from a previous marriage. Now you all have many sellers that you have to track down, so just find out who actually owns your house and who has the authority to sell. Also, if your house is in a trust and stuff like that, make sure you have the executing authority, the authority to execute on behalf of the trust to enter into that contract. It does save a lot of the time. Additionally, look to see if you have any violations on the home, or if you have judgments out there. This is a big thing too, and this is a reality check. A lot of times people, they'll have $1,000 credit card from when they're younger. They never pay it off. And then that judgment just kind of lingers out there. And then when you go to sell the house, now you have to pay off that judgment. So just be mindful of that. Nothing goes away as quickly as it should.
I had there's a similar story where it was someone didn't pay, like they moved and it was like people's gas bill they didn't pay, and it was 15 years later. It was like, hey, you owed $100. It ballooned into $1,000, and it came up. So
right.
You're right. Like those things. I think what we're highlighting to those listening is there's kind of 2 ways to approach selling a house. Well, I shouldn't say 2 ways to approach. There's 2 kind of main things or themes to think about. One is the act of getting the house in a place where it's presentable. you kind of make some repairs, you do everything that you can do to make sure it shows perfectly. And then there's also the pre-work on the legal side, which again underscores why bringing in an attorney before you even get a listing agreement. So all those little checks, right? Those things that you can look for, because if they're there, they're there. But I'd much rather them come up, weeks before you get an offer, so you can start figuring that out. Because then,
Right.
And you've mentioned this in other videos, then what happens if you need to take the proceeds from the sale and then put it into down payment on another home? That might delay your lender giving you the rest of the cash, the loan to.
You might be short.
Yeah.
You might be short. Say, yeah, we're going to walk away with $100,000. Oh, wait, didn't see this $20,000 judgment sitting out there. Now I only have 80. I can't come up with the rest.
Yeah.
It's important to know those things.
Absolutely. You can plan ahead. All right. Well, I know we're just about, I think we're at about the 10-minute mark. We like to keep these short and sweet for our audiences like us who don't have much of an attention span, but still want good information. So with that, is there any parting thoughts, any Lennyisms that you want to get out there to the world?
What do you think 50-50 means? Or what do you think split equally means? I only say this because previously I was just on the phone call with a lender, and I sent an email saying we're splitting everything equally. She called me to confirm. I need you to confirm that you mean 50-50. What else does split equally mean? So it has nothing to do with selling the house, but just one of those things where I was kind of taken back. So if anyone out there has any other ideas on what split equally means in any scenario, let me know. I really want to know this, if there is another interpretation.
We'll keep that as a cliffhanger. We'll keep the audience engaged. So if anyone does watch this video to the end, hopefully you do, because again, all great stuff by Len here. Leave a comment and let us know if you have a different interpretation of split equally. But I have a feeling, Len, that particular realtor is in the minority in this one. So
there's a lender.
It's a lender. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Even
that's a whole other point of discussion. All right, Len. Well, as always, we appreciate you making the time. We appreciate your insights, and we look forward to the next video with you.
Absolutely. Take care now.
All right. Take care.